Welcome back to the Soft Living Podcast. I'm your host, Kathleen. If you've been listening to the past few episodes, you know we've been exploring the theme of living authentically, understanding who you are, navigating those in between moments of change, and learning how to actually step into the next version of yourself. And something that's been on my mind lately is this idea that growth doesn't always mean starting over. Sometimes we feel like if we want to evolve, we need to completely have a new life plan, a new routine, a new mindset, or maybe even a new identity. Almost like we need to wipe the slate clean in order to move forward. But the more I reflect on it, the more I realize that's not really how growth works. Most of the time, growth is actually about refining what already exists. You're building on a foundation that's already been created through your own lived experiences. The things you've learned, the relationships you've had, the mistakes you've made, the moments that have shaped you. All of those experiences have given you perspective, discernment, and they've helped shape the person you are today. So instead of asking, how do I start over? A more helpful question might be, what in my life is ready to be refined? Because the truth is, you don't need to erase everything in order to grow. You can build from where you are. I like to think about it almost like renovating a space. You don't completely tear down an entire house every time you want to feel different. You keep the structure, the foundation, and you thoughtfully update what no longer reflects who you are. And I think our lives can work in a very similar way, where you take what you've learned, what you've built, and you refine it. You keep what still feels aligned, you release what doesn't, and you move forward with more clarity than you had before. When you look at growth through that lens, it actually removes a lot of pressure because it reminds you that you already have something valuable to work with. Your experiences are not something you need to escape from. There's something you can build with. And there's something really powerful about that realization. When you look at your life through this perspective, you start to see everything you've experienced and how it's contributed to the person you are today. Even the things that didn't go the way you expected. Those moments gave you insight, they gave you perspective, and they taught you what resonates with you and what doesn't. I truly believe that every experience is brought to us to teach us something and a lesson that we could learn from. And there's actually a sense of pride that comes with recognizing that and being proud of your experiences in life. Because you're not starting from zero. You're building on this experience, your knowledge, your intuition, everything you've gathered along the way. And you're carrying forward the wisdom that only comes from actually living life. So instead of discarding the past, you begin to see it differently. You begin to gather the lessons, the growth, the insight, almost like collecting these different memories and experiences from everything you've lived through, and allowing those experiences to support the next phase of your life. And that shift alone can change the way growth feels. It becomes less about pressure to reinvent yourself and more about evolving with intention. So what does this look like in everyday life? It's actually quite simple. One thing I've noticed for myself is how much our physical environment affects our energy. For me, if there's a cluttered space or I have a lot of belongings that I no longer use, it actually makes me feel quite stressed. And every so often, maybe a few times each season, I feel the urge to reorganize my space. I'm really big on energy and can feel the heavy energy in a room and a space. And every time I need to reset, whether that's rearranging furniture, even a few times a season, clearing out my closet, removing clothes that I'm no longer wearing, rearranging parts of my home, or letting go of things that no longer feel like they represent who I am now. I think it's important to bring joy into this as well. As someone who loves interior design, this is an area and a space that brings me joy. And it's not necessarily about having less. It's more about asking myself, does this still reflect the life I'm creating? Even small changes like that can shift the feeling of a space. It creates openness, it resets the energy. Another practice that has been truly important for me is journaling. A lot of us move through life with so many mental tabs open, and I'm sure this is something you could also relate to. We're thinking about work, responsibilities, conversations, plans for the future, and sometimes it becomes difficult to hear our own thoughts. And journaling creates space for that. It allows me to slow down and process what's happening in my life. And honestly, that's what's inspired me to create my daily self journal. It's something I created as a way to pause and reflect and reconnect with what matters most. Another way we can refine our lives is by creating openings for new experiences. Sometimes growth happens simply because we place ourselves in environments where new ideas, perspectives, and conversations can enter our lives. This podcast is a perfect example of that and has actually been one of those openings. When I first started it, it came from following something that felt meaningful to me It was a desire to explore conversations around personal growth, reflection, sharing my own personal experiences. And since then, it's opened the door to so many unexpected things. New perspectives, conversations, people, ideas, opportunities that I probably wouldn't have encountered otherwise. That's something I've realized about growth. One small step towards something meaningful creates momentum you couldn't have predicted. Is there something that's been calling your attention lately? Maybe something you've been curious about trying or learning or exploring, or even a conversation that you've been putting off that you need to have. Moments of curiosity are actually invitations into the next chapter of your life and perhaps worth exploring. Another important part of refining your life is gratitude, because when we focus so much on where we want to go, it's easy to overlook how much we've already experienced and how much we already have in our life. But when you pause and look back, you start to realize how many moments have shaped you. Every experience has contributed something, and that perspective becomes incredibly valuable as you move forward. Instead of feeling like you need to start from scratch, you begin to see that you're already standing on a strong foundation. And from that place, growth becomes something you build, not something you chase. If you're wondering where to begin with refining your life, it might start with a few simple questions. I encourage you to journal on these questions and connect with what comes up. What in your life still feels aligned? What feels like it's ready to evolve? What might you be ready to release? The next step isn't dramatic. It might be something as simple as clearing out your car or your desk or reorganizing your phone, even journaling for a few minutes, or simply giving yourself space to reflect. Those small refinements over time shape the way your life feels. And it's all about embodiment and being able to feel yourself as that person, not just envision it. That's a topic that I'll be touching on in a future episode. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. If something in this episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to share it with someone who might find it meaningful too. And if you enjoy these reflections, make sure you're following the podcast on Spotify or Apple so you never miss an episode. I'd be so grateful for you to leave a rating or review, as it helps more people discover the show. And always feel free to reach out and let me know what topics you'd love to explore next. And until next time, keep refining your life, trusting your path, and remembering that you don't have to start over to become who you're meant to be. You can build exactly from where you are. I'll see you in the next episode.